Thank you.
Council, please check your microphones.
Oh, paperwork here. Oh, thank you. Oh, all right. I was like, I got one.
Are they on?
All right.
Please vote.
All right. Oh, a lot of papers here.
You got jokes, man. You got jokes. What you gonna do with them, man?
Call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, if you would, call the roll, please.
Mr. Buckner?
Here?
Reverend Campbell? Mr. Hood?
Here.
Mayor Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mayo? Vice Mayor Miller? Mr. Saunders?
Here.
Mr. Vogler?
Here.
Mr. Whittle?
Here.
We have our invocation by Councilman Vogler, followed by a pledge of allegiance. If everyone please stand.
Let's pray. Lord, 2 years ago, we were hit by an invisible enemy that came from the other side of the world, but soon spread across our nation and many others. We were hit with something that has cost the lives of millions of people across the world and has cost us so many things. But through the struggle and through this adversity of the last 2 years, we have found resilience. We have found strength, Lord. We have found each other. And my hope, Lord, is that we have found you. Because no matter how chaotic, no matter how terrifying things may become in the world, we can find comfort in knowing that you are on the throne. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to say good evening to those of you who are here in the chambers, those of you who are viewing from River City TV, and those of you who are at home. Good evening to everyone. We have a special recognition with Mr. Peyton Sellers and his wife. Please come forward at this time, please. I want to say good evening to you both. And we have a proclamation that reads as thus: whereas Peyton Sellers, son of Bert and Mary Sellers, was born in the city of Danville, Virginia, raised in the Dan River region, and attended Dan River High School. And whereas Peyton has a long and accomplished career motorsports across the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series, Camping World Truck Series, and Xfinity Series. And whereas Peyton won his first NASCAR Weekly Series championship in 2005, becoming the youngest champion in Weekly Series history at the age of 21. And whereas Peyton won the 2021 NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series championship, where he secured 21 wins and 38 starts. And whereas Peyton was also the 2021 Southeast Regional Champion, Virginia State Champion, and track champion of South Boston Speedway and Dominion Speedway. And whereas Peyton is not defined exclusively for his success in racing, but also for his commitment to the Dan River region, the successful business operated by Peyton and his family, and his pride in being a lifetime resident of Danville. Now, therefore, I, Alonzo Jones, Mayor of the City of Danville, Virginia, along with Danville City Council, do hereby proclaim Thursday, March 17, 2022, as Peyton Sellers Day in the city of Danville, and extend special recognition to his service in region, his accomplishments, and for representing our community on the national stage. Given under my hand this 15th day of March 2022. Please, let's give him a big hand, him and his wife. And please come forward. doing, and we're going to take a picture. His mother and his father are here. Please stand. Let us just applaud you all as well. Please stand. Comments. Council, join me. We'll do a picture, and then we'll let you give some comments.
Yeah. That's all right.
Let's give him another hand. Please feel free to give us some comments.
Just thank you so much for having us out tonight. This is very special to me and my family and everything that we stand for. We have been very, very blessed to be from Southside Virginia and call Danville and Ringgold home for many years now. So it's just, there's a lot of excitement around Danville right now. I feel like we're truly in a season of change right now in the Danville area. We thank you guys for everything you do, because I feel like that without the right leadership, Danville's nothing. And you guys are pointing us in a good direction. And Vogler's kind of like you said, without the good Lord pointing us in the right direction and being our beacon, it's hard to do anything. So this championship was a very big deal for me. Winning 21 races was a very big deal for me. And NASCAR and Advanced Auto Parts has got a weekly racing series that allows me to race on a national level locally. We go about a 4-hour region around this area to be able to compete for short track wins every week. And it's just a blessing to be able to chase a dream that I have. I was able to make a living doing it for a long time. Now I'm settled in. Danville's home for me. It always has been. I had the opportunity to travel and race and live in different places and do things, but I always knew where home was. So I get a chance to come back here, be a part of our family business, to help grow and build Danville to make it what it is and what it's becoming. So thank you guys for everything. Thank you for having us out. We look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday.
Tell them more about it. Tell them more about where we're going to be at on Thursday.
Thursday afternoon, Thursday around lunchtime, I think. We're at Advanced Auto Parts on 58. We should have a race car out there on display. We should have some different things going on and celebrating Peyton Sellers Day. So it's a true honor. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Council, any comments? Anyone? Council? Again, thank you so much and your family for all you're doing. Someone told me earlier, one former mayor, you mentioned Danville, but one former mayor wanted to talk about Ringgold. Do you want to mention anything about Ringgold? Thank you so much.
You represent well.
We were born and raised in Ringgold, and then you guys made us Danville when you annexed us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Under communications from visitors, any citizens who desire to speak on any item that's not on the agenda may come forward at this time. Any citizen who desires to speak on any item that's not on the agenda may come forward at this time. Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
Name is Dolores Rhyne, D-E-L-O-R-E-S, Rhyne, one syllable, R-H-Y-N-E.
And my name is Ralph Ryan. Did you say address?
Yes, please.
273 Mill Creek Lane, Chatham, Virginia, 24531. Okay, my name is Ralph Ryan. I am the president and founder of God's Final Call and Warning.
And I am the founder of God's Final Call and Warning, and we've been incorporated since 1998.
We've been in this area doing giveaways. We distribute to the public, hopefully the needy public, more the needy than the greedy, but all come. But at any rate, we distribute food, clothing, toys, school supplies, appliances. If Walmart sells it, then we have it to give away. We pick up from 9 separate Walmarts. We pick up from Amazon. We pick up from CVS Distribution Center. A couple of local places like City Trend and God's Pit Crew, and there are other places, but we are solely, that's every day of our lives, we are solely about blessing and helping the citizens of this area. We primarily work in Danville, but we go to South Boston, Clarksville, Eden, Martinsville, all around, okay? And we literally bless thousands. That's every month, all right? And we wanted to come here to become more acquainted with the council, and we want the council more acquainted with us, because we need some backing and we need help. And in a minute, I'm going to mention a specific issue. Now, Mr. Campbell and Mr. Mayo, and of course the mayor, they've been to several of our events, so they see what we do. We appreciate the work that God's Storehouse does. I have picked up from there myself when I was in need, all right? But what we try to do is give 10 times, I said 10 times, 10 times as much as God's Storehouse does. But it's not just food. It's anything primarily that a person needs and wants. And so what I would like to do, we're having an event on the 27th of this month, all right? And I have a flyer, and at some point, I'd like to put it in the hands of everybody. And please feel free to invite anybody and everybody you know who might can benefit from this type of thing. And what we are planning to do is just grow, continue to grow, so that when people are in need, they know that they can come to us. And one other thing, I have 3 warehouses in Danville. 2 of them are up on 58, between the Sleep Inn and that big church that says Victory. I don't know if you know it, right up 58. And there is a big silo there, all right? And there's an empty sign up there. And I talked to the man who owns that property and all, and he told me what I need to do is go to the city council, because he said they would not allow him or the U-Haul place up behind him to put a sign up there. And he said, just share with them that you're a nonprofit. You're not putting it up there to make a buck. You're putting it up there so folks can identify you when they come in that area. See, we're behind the Victory Church, and people have a hard time even finding out where we are, even when they get there, see? So we were interested. They said something about a county ordinance, city ordinance or something, and they said you would have to go to the council, present it to them, and they have the power to allow you or not allow you to do that. So I just wanted to mention that. I wouldn't know where to go from here. You can direct me on that, but I'll leave it at that. But I just want you to know that we are.
Let's get the flyers to her. Chuck, get the flyers to her.
Right? We are an organization that really wants to serve Danville. And when the social services can't do it, we can. When the churches in the area can't do it, we can. We have a 57,000 square foot warehouse, and we have 2 10,000 foot warehouses.
Your time is up, but I want to give you 30 more seconds to kind of wrap it up.
Okay, but I'm about finished. I just wanted you to know that we are here for the city of Danville.
And
Let me-
thank you very much.
No, don't go anywhere. you stated earlier that I have been attending, and and lately you all have been extremely busy.
Yeah.
Extremely, I've been noticing. Let me say, Mr. Sellers was here a few minutes ago, and he talked about the leadership of council, but it's people like you and Mr. Sellers and his family that help us to do the things that we do. There's plenty of persons who are sitting in our chamber tonight that are very active in this community. We can't do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
And the things that you're trying to do to make sure, and I've seen what you do, I've witnessed what you do. I would just like to, before I go to council, on the podium, there would be a card there from the city manager because you had a request. I think someone gave you the wrong information, but take that card and contact the city manager, and the deputy city manager is to your left, my right, at this table here. And take that card and contact them, and they'll give you the proper information on how to go about doing things. Anyone else? Councilman Campbell.
Yes, Mr. Ryan, I've known Mr. Ryan for a number of years and the work that you're doing in the community. I just want to commend you, and may God bless you and continue moving forward. And whatever I can do to support you, as you know, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, you
Thank
taught
you
me
so much.
many a day.
Councilman Mayo.
Thank you.
Turn your microphone on, Councilman Mayo. No, try it again.
Now,
There you go.
I say the same thing to piggyback off of Councilman Campbell. You are doing a great job. You're doing a great deed for Danville. I've seen you out, had a chance to go over to the schools, and you give away so much.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's so much, there's abundance. Keep that up. We need that, and we definitely are going to support you in everything you do. And like the mayor says, that kudos to both of you on what you're doing, and continue to do that.
Now, you better brace yourself because very seldom our attorney talks, but he wants to talk. Mr. Attorney.
What I thought I would do is save them a phone call. What they can do is Monday through Friday from about 8:30 to 4:30, they can go to the second floor, and everything that they'll need to do can take place through community development. So if they go to community development and they see the zoning folks, they will get them to the right board.
Pause for a second. I don't want her writing on her hand. Sue, give her a piece of paper, please.
We could write it on your flyer.
And then Clark, now share that information again, Mr. Attorney.
If you'll go into community development, which is downstairs on the second floor of this building.
Second floor, not fourth.
Second floor of this building, it's sort of around the corner, around the back, but anybody can tell you how to get there. And you go in and tell them what you want to do. What'll happen is you'll have to go before one of two boards, and one of those boards will make a recommendation to council. The other one makes their own determination. That way, rather than having to make a phone call and figure out what to do, you go in there and they'll walk you right through everything you need in order to get an application to be able to deal with that sign.
The hours were from 8?
I'd say give them 8:30 to 4:30. I mean, they're open 8 to 5, but I'd say 8:30 to 4:30.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Again, thank you both so much. We have the flyers, and we'll be getting that information, and keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
And I hope that you can attend on the 27th.
Thank you so much. We're still in communications. Any citizen who desires to speak on any item that's not on the agenda may come forward at this time. Any citizen who desires to speak on any item that's not on the agenda may come forward at this time. Council, under consent agenda, what's your pleasure? Council Whittle?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman Campbell. Discussion of the motion. Madam Clerk, if you would, call the roll, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Under consideration of appointments, Dr. Miller.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, prior to this meeting, your Committee on Appointments, comprised of Councilman Mayo, Campbell, and myself, discussed applicants for two positions. One is the Planning Commission. We recommend you appoint Tommy Bennett, and the Employment Retirement System, Edgar Love.
Any questions in regards to putting that on our next agenda? Any questions, any concerns? So it's done. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Under review of general fund financials, Michael, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. In your agenda packet this evening, you should have the general fund financial results through the end of February. That is 2/3 of our fiscal year complete, or 67%, as we compare it to budget. As has been mentioned in previous months, our revenues still continue to come in very strong. At this point, at the end of February, we had $69.3 million received. That's 60% of our budget. For comparison, last year, February, we were at 58% of budget. And this is also an increase of $4.5 million over last year. Mainly, we're seeing increases in two general areas. That's general property taxes and also our local consumer taxes. With regard to general property taxes, real estate is about $365,000 over last year, and personal property about $744,000 over last year. A portion of this is coming from shared revenue with the county, specifically, say, companies like Morgan Olson. We have new revenue coming from there that we didn't have last year. On the local consumer-driven taxes, our main three, sales, meals, and lodging, are all doing very well. Sales tax is at 73% of budget. That's up about $600,000 from last year. As you know, we receive sales tax in monthly installments from the state 2 months after the retail sales take place. So in February, we received sales tax related to the December retail activity. That's typically a high month for holiday shopping. This February was no different. We received $1,165,000 for 1 month, and that's the record for the city. That's the most we've ever received in 1 month for sales tax. Meals tax continues to do very well. It's 77% of budget. That's roughly $1 million over where we were last February. Lodging taxes, as I've mentioned in the past, have also rebounded very nicely. We were at 89% of budget, about $400,000 more than last year. Another big player in our local taxes is business licenses. Most companies pay those once a year in the month of March. Some opt to do it quarterly. I looked today, March 15th, and we are at 96% of budget already. Still a little bit of March left to go, and certainly the fourth quarter. Our budget for business licenses was about $5.5 million, so we're almost already there with, like I said, another quarter to go. So I expect that's going to exceed budget by the time we get to June. Under state and federal revenues, they continue to come in a good tracking pace according to expenditures. No concerns there. You may see a decrease compared to last year in our non-categorical aid from the state. A bulk of this is funding for the Welcome Center. We receive $100,000 from the state each year to help operate our Welcome Center. It usually comes in between February and May. It came in February last year. It should be in, I'd say, by the end of this month or 1st of April. So it's just a timing difference with that, creating the decrease compared to last year. But other than that, all of our revenues look very good at this point. On the expenditure side, we are at $78 million. That's a little less than 63% of budget, so a little behind the 2/3 mark, which is good. If you just look at departmental expenditures, they're at 60% of budget, so it's a good place to be in, and we should finish the budget a year under where we had originally planned as far as expenditures. So I have no concerns at this time, unless there's questions, Mayor. That's all I have for this month.
Any questions? Another great report. Thank you so much, Michael. Have a good evening. Thank you so much. Under item B, consideration of the issuance of general obligation school bonds for Danville Public Schools. Council, what's your pleasure? Councilman Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the resolution providing the issuing sales and award by the City of Danville, Virginia, of its general obligation school bonds, Series 2022, in the maximum aggregated principal amount of $141 million, and providing for the form, details, and payment thereof.
Second by Councilman Mayo. Discussion of the motion. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Mr. Hood.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Mayo.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Pause and say our superintendent is here. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Thank you so much. Oh, I forgot, her husband is here too, who works for us. Hello. Under item C, consideration of approving a moral obligation with American National Bank and Trust Company. Council, what's your pleasure? Councilman Buckner.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve a resolution authorizing and approving execution of a moral obligation agreement by and between the City of Danville, Virginia, and American National Bank and Trust Company, a Virginia banking corporation.
Second by Councilman Mayo. Discussion of the motion. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Mr. Hood.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Mayo.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Consideration of renaming Stonewall Recreation Center to the Camp Grove Recreation Center. Dr. Miller.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose a resolution renaming the Stonewall Recreation Center to the Camp Grove Recreation Center.
Second by Councilman Buckner. Discussion of the motion. Dr. Miller.
brief discussion. I was approached by Tommy Bennett, who really deserves the credit for this. The residents of that area would prefer the name change, and I've been assured by our city manager there are ample funds in the budget for pay for signs and renaming and so forth in this year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Madam Clerk, Mr. Attorney. Is your microphone on? Is it on? Okay. Can y'all hear him? Okay, try it again.
Okay.
There you go.
How about now? If you all pass this, there will be one more ordinance that comes before you to rename the voting center as well. So we'll have to do a little bit of cleanup, but we'll be able to do that once council has taken care of this resolution.
Councilman Vogler.
Yeah, Dr. Miller, because I remember this even maybe 2 or 3 years ago coming up. This originated from residents of that neighborhood.
Exactly.
They had really asked for it because they're proud. It's a proud neighborhood, and they're very proud of their neighborhood, and they want that facility because they're the ones that use it to be named for that neighborhood. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Mayo.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Whittle.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Mr. Hood.
Aye.
Consideration of amending the fiscal year 2022 budget appropriation ordinance for a grant from the Virginia Department of Health. Council, what's your pleasure? Councilman Buckner.
May I make a motion we approve an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 budget appropriation ordinance to provide for a grant by the Virginia Department of Health in an amount of $7,780 and a local share in the amount of $7,780 for the EMS equipment and trailer for Swiftwater team for a total appropriation in the amount of $15,560 and appropriating the same first reading.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman Whittle. Consideration of amending the fiscal year 2022 budget appropriation ordinance for public safety technology modernization. Councilman Vogler.
Yes, Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 budget appropriation ordinance by increasing revenues from various taxes to purchase public safety modernization software and hardware and appropriation in the amount of $1.5 million and appropriating the same. First reading.
Second by Councilman Mayo. Mr. City Manager. So as he's coming forward to the public and those of you who are sitting here tonight, this is something that council has decided to do for the first time. We're actually presenting a preliminary budget to the public, and this is the first time we've done this. And so, Mr. City Manager, good evening to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the council giving us an opportunity as a staff to present a recommended budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023. Just as for background, this is the budget process where we stand. Of course, March 15th is the first date, and you should all have a budget book in front of you. It's also going to be available online for the public to review as well, and we'll be sharing that link on our Facebook page on River City TV. I'm sure that as I say it, it's probably happening pretty soon. But just to give you some background, really the budget process starts shortly after the budget is adopted, frankly, in June. You know, the new year begins in July, and our budget director, Henrietta, previously Cynthia, we're always thinking about what's going to happen next year. So we're constantly monitoring how revenues are coming in. We really begin to start working on the budget process in the fall and winter as winter begins. So a lot of months have been put into getting us to this point, to getting you a recommended budget. Today is March 15th, so this is the recommended budget presentation. We will have work sessions as directed by council. We can discuss that after I finish this presentation, after I hear from you and what you would prefer to have. In the past, in the most recent years, we've had fairly condensed work sessions because there hasn't been anything terribly controversial in our budgets. You know, we typically present a budget that has funding that continues the services that we provide that people have grown accustomed to receiving. Our departments don't ask for more than they need in order to do their job. They do ask for what they need, the resources they need to get their job done and do it effectively. By April 30th, so this is between now and April 30th, City Council has the opportunity through discussions with me and amongst each other to make amendments or changes to this recommended budget. And once we have all that information together, and staff will participate in that as well, because as everyone knows, the state has not adopted their budget. Things happen. In 2020, for example, when the pandemic started, and we'd already had a budget recommended or had it prepared, and changes were made as well as that. So hopefully nothing like that will happen, but you never know. We have flexibility until it's finally adopted in June. But on April 30th, the City Council's introductory budget will be available to the public, and that's when the public process starts. So that's when we start having public hearings on the various parts of the budget. It's listed here on this screen. That's when the public gets to tell us what they think about the budget. And then again, more amendments, more changes can be made to the budget leading up to final adoption, hopefully on June 21st, which is the last date listed here. So you'll see all the various technical processes that have to happen in order for us to have this budget finally adopted and in place for July 1. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to give you a high-level overview of the budget, touch on some things that I think are themes for this budget going forward, and things that might be of interest at a high level. If you have more specific questions, of course, I can always attempt to answer as many specific questions as you might have. But if there are a lot of specific questions, that's really for the work session would be maybe the more appropriate place for that to happen, because I will have the support of department heads who can maybe get into more specificity on those things. All right, so here are the budget highlights. I want to be completely transparent. There are no real estate tax increases, none of the major categories of taxes.
You're going too fast. I think the citizens need to hear that. Say that again.
So just to be totally transparent with everybody in the public, there are no major tax increases included in this budget that are generally applicable to the general public. However, there are, per the recommendation of the Airport Commission, included in this budget recommendation, their recommendation to City Council. So I just carried their recommendation forward and included in this budget. It doesn't generate a whole lot of revenue, but the Airport Commission felt like the fees and the taxes at the airport were not really in line with our competition. They were way low, and frankly, the city subsidizes operations at the airport through general tax dollars, and this actually helps them produce more revenue and help support the operations of the airport, which is used by just a segment of our society. So there is an aircraft tax increase. Currently, it's extremely low at 30 cents. I think the recommendation was 69 cents, so it's a little over double, but still well in line with others and very competitive with neighboring airports. Also, we have increased fees for hangar rentals, which bring them more in line with nearby jurisdictions. The other fee, just again, to be totally transparent, we don't have a fee for a makerspace at the library because until recently we didn't have a makerspace at the library. So we wanted to establish a fee. It's $25 an hour. That's very similar to what we charge, for example, for space at the airport. So we just wanted to keep it in line with that. And with the utility funds, there are no proposed rate or fee changes. And again, the budget is forwarded to the City Council as approved by the Utility Commission. Dr. Miller serves as the City Council liaison to the Utility Commission. I'm a voting member of the Utility Commission by code, so I, of course, voted on that as well as part of that. But just to be clear on the utility funds, every 2 years we do a biennial rate study, and this is the year that we don't do a study. So in the upcoming months, we will begin the process and examine what the rates ought to be in order to provide the service. And if you'll recall, last time we did this, we actually lowered rates. So our utility department staff has been doing a good job trying to find ways to be more efficient, but still be reliable in delivery of service and be very responsive to outages. So we'll look to do that again as we go forward. In the general fund, our highlights, the budget is $122.5 million, recommended to be $122.5 million. Included among that are major revenue increases. There are, of course, other revenue increases that aren't included, but these are the major categories of revenues, and here are the increases that we expect to have versus the current year. Additional real estate taxes, personal property taxes, sales tax, meals tax, and hotel tax. That's a little over $4 million right there, and that points to the success that our investments have made in our community and the fact that our economy is doing so well.
For some persons who are watching who may not understand this language, slow it down just a little bit. When you said major revenue increases, this is nothing that we're asking the public to slow that down a little bit so they can understand that.
I appreciate you. I talk fast sometimes. What I'm saying here is that we are not raising rates. It's just that the economy is doing so well in Danville that our revenues are going up. So as people are able to spend more on things, as property values go up, as we recruit new industry and new business into our community, all those entities, all those people are paying new taxes to our community that we haven't had before. It should be no secret, every month, Michael Atkins, he did it earlier today, our finance officer, he has month after month explained how our revenues have performed much better than the previous year. And that's a trend we think will continue. And frankly, it's based on the fact that the City Council has making economic development a priority. It's been a priority for many years, and we are reaping the benefit of new industry, new companies, new businesses, a revamped downtown that is really producing results, and we're seeing it right now, and we want to see that continue. Under the expenditure highlights, we do want, if there's a theme to this budget, we've heard City Council, we've heard members of City Council talk about how they want to support youth. So if there's a theme to this budget, and what we're trying to do as part of this budget process is we want to have a significant focus on our efforts to invest in our young people. And so you'll hear me talk about that as I go through this budget presentation. One of the driving parts of that is that personnel costs are increasing. So we are a people-driven organization. The services that we provide have to be done by people. It involves an athletics department. I point that out because that's a division of athletics and Parks and Recreation. People have to actually work to provide that service for our young people. And all of our services are driven by people. And as everyone knows, the cost of employees is going up. The cost of living is going up. To be competitive in the marketplace, to hire and retain people, that's going up. Also, we're looking at minimum wage increases that the state is implementing, and we want to implement that in a sound way so that when we implement our minimum wage increases that are required by the state, that we're flowing that increase through the organization and treating all our employees fairly. So last year, we had a crisis, or in the current year, it was last calendar year, but it's in the current fiscal year. We were in a crisis when it came to the police department. We had police officers, we were several positions vacant. We had several positions vacant in the police department. A lot of people were looking elsewhere for employment. And we do expect a lot of our police officers that through their community engagement activities, where they're very well trained, they're very well accredited, and they do a fantastic job in our community. And it can be very grueling work, and this environment, this political environment, is tough on police officers. So we're seeing challenges with retaining and hiring police officers. So because we were in crisis mode, we proactively changed the pay scale for the police department. That's highly unusual for us to do that. That's typically not something I would recommend doing, to single out one particular department and make a change. But we had to do it because we were in crisis mode, and it actually has produced results that are beneficial to us. We were able to retain our officers. We're competitive with other police departments in the area, and it was important to do that. We will, and we plan to continue to do that throughout the rest of the organization through increases to meet the state minimum wage requirements, which will impact all other departments. So we feel like that is going to be the best way to implement it, and funds are included in this budget to take care of that. So basically, if this is approved as is, the city employees will see a chance to get, on average, a 3% pay for performance increase in July, and then another increase in January. In the utility fund, the highlights are the budget is $164 million. There are no changes in rates or fees, like I mentioned before. It's $3.5 million less than the current year. And the reason that is the case is each year the utility funds do fluctuate by millions of dollars, which may seem like to most people kind of alarming. Why does it go up and down millions of dollars? Well, because the majority of the cost in the utility departments and the divisions of the utilities are driven by the cost of energy, gas, and electric, and we pass those costs. When we purchase it, we pass those costs on to the customers. So when it costs us less, we pass that cost savings on to our customers. And that's why we were able to reduce our rates last year, because we were able to purchase power cheaper than we used to. But don't worry, we are very focused on having a reliable system. We are proud of the fact that when there is an outage, that those outages are very short. It was recently remarked at a groundbreaking or a ribbon-cutting event by a local industry that the reason they selected our community is because they took a look at how quickly does your community restore power when you have an outage, and they determined that we were well better, well, a lot better than the competition of other places that we're looking at locating a business. So I think it's important to point that out, that we have a reliable system. We also have employees that are working hard to get us back with power when that happens.
Ken, can you run through that part again? Because I think that's really important, that there is data, that you were told by an industry, there's data that shows that we restore power outages better than most.
That's correct. And you know, as you know, as city council members know, and I'm just sharing with the public, when we recruit an industry, they decide why to locate in a community based on a lot of data. And the data that they were looking at included, it was important to them to have reliable power and to have consistent power. And the data they were looking at was that if there is an outage, it's a day or two, it's not weeks, it's not a week. Because their process could handle a few hours of outage, but they couldn't handle days of outages. And thankfully, we performed much better than any of the competition where they were looking to locate their industry. And as a result, we have millions, hundreds of millions of capital investment and hundreds of jobs coming to our community. And so that's a good thing. Also, just to point out that we are concerned about reliability. We continue to do right-of-way clearance as part of our budget, and we continue our substation upgrade plans. If you talked to us 5 years ago, you'd think, okay, tell us about your substation. Well, they're all 40, 50, 30 years old. Now we're upgrading them so that they're only a few years old, and we're getting through that list, and that's going to help our reliability. Like I said before, the theme of this budget is investing in the success of our youth. And the City Council identified priority areas of education, economic development, and public safety all have a part in that success story. And I'm going to go through how in each of those categories this budget makes a difference. Regarding investing in our youth, the Parks and Recreation Department is strengthening its partnership with Danville Public Schools to implement a robust youth athletics program. Dr. Hairston and I met with our staffs, parts of our staffs, to discuss how we can better partner on youth athletics and using our facilities together in a more efficient way. So we kicked that off, and then we turned it over to our staff to get it done. So they're in the process of working on ways to improve athletics because, you know, as the school system, they have the young people, and we have facilities, and they have facilities. So we want to make sure we're working together as efficiently as possible to implement athletics programs for an entire community. As part of that, we are adding a new position to assist in building and sustaining youth athletics to our athletics division as part of this recommendation. Also, we want to upgrade 2 part-time positions to full-time positions to support athletics and programming. Again, this is investing in our youth, investing in athletics. It's something we've heard from council members that it's important, and that's why it's recommended in this budget. We've had a lot of success with our gang prevention program. It's received accolades for the work that it's been doing. Included in this budget is expansion of that program in order to better serve the most at-risk people in our community, the most at-risk young people in our community. We want to continue to support the police department's community engagement initiatives, which have been so successful in our efforts. With regard to education, we don't know for sure, but we do expect additional state funding. You did get a copy of the current draft of the budget from the schools. I handed that out right before the meeting. That includes a detailed budget, and there's an example of the previous budget, or there is a copy of the adopted budget within that packet. Dr. Hairston personally delivered that this afternoon to me, and we felt it was important for you to have that information. As I referred to earlier, there will be an opportunity for City Council to adopt the school budget, and that comes in a few meetings from now. But I will point out that what I've heard from Dr. Hairston is that she was able, with her staff, to use the federal stimulus funding that we've all gotten, both the city and the school system, to enable them to have a flat local funding for operations, which means that they're not asking for any more money this year than they did in the current year. And the reason that's the case is because they've been leveraging their federal dollars that from CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan Act to implement processes that, of course, respond to the pandemic, but have enabled them to do things without asking for more local money. So I want to give them credit for doing that. The Youth Athletics Partnership, of course, is something that is important that they're working on with us. The budget will include, my understanding is that currently there's a 5% teacher pay increase included. Actually, it's for all staff, not just teachers. And then, as is usual, $2 million in support of routine capital costs is included in our budget recommendation. That's something we've done for several years in a row. You all know that the citizens approved a 1% local option sales tax, which is going toward renovating, I think, 4 schools. So there are still other schools that are always in need of repair and maintenance, and the $2 million will go toward helping to maintain those schools, roofs, painting, HVACs, various needs that occur throughout the year to maintain a building that is probably several decades old. So this is, when I gave a preview presentation to members of the media earlier today, and I provided them with headlines. So this is the headline for our economic development success. Our economic opportunity effort proved successful. So if you look at the past several years, you can see that our award-winning River District, where we've invested $50 million in public funds, has produced $252 million in private investment. Anyone who's been through a River District and can compare it from now to several years ago, we'll see new apartments, retail, restaurants, entertainment, professional office, and open space. It's being recognized, and it is an award-winning River District for the effort that has been put forward to make it what it is today. We're also being recognized for industrial recruitment. The Site Selection magazine ranked us in the top 10, actually number 7, as a micropolitan area in the United States. That's because we, as a community, have been able to attract businesses to our area. And what's really unique about that for Danville is that Danville is not adjacent to a large metro area. We are an older industrial city that's isolated, and it has to produce its own economic growth. And that means that we have to juice it a little bit. We have to work harder. We have to have a very strong economic development team. We have to provide great services. We have to create great quality of life so that people want to choose to live here, so we have the workforce necessary to recruit the industries, and that when the industries are looking, we have invested in sites and buildings that are available for them to locate their businesses. And we've seen great success, which is the next bullet. We've had over $1 billion, that's with a B, $1 billion of capital investment since 2018 in the Danville and Pennsylvania area, and nearly 4,000 jobs created in our region since 2018. That is a very remarkable success story. You will not find that elsewhere, especially in a situation where you're not adjacent to a Charlotte or a Raleigh. We're not a suburb. We are our own city that's isolated and has to produce its own success, and we've been successful. And I believe we are reversing population decline. We are seeing property values go up. We're seeing demand for housing go up. We are seeing demand for apartments going up. These are all good signs of the effort that has been put forth by city councils in the past through their budget process to invest in our future. So to continue that effort, this budget includes new investments in economic opportunity or continued investments. We want to continue the work of the River District with that redevelopment. There are still empty buildings that need to be filled. We want to continue our industrial recruitment efforts. Site development, as we fill up sites, it's been talked about before, Councilman Saunders brought it up at a previous meeting, that as we fill up, we land a Tyson, we land an AeroFarms, we land these projects, they're taking up our sites. We need to have new sites so that we can land the next Tyson, the next AeroFarms. We need to work on commercial revitalization. That's been mentioned by Councilman Vogler in the past. Really, when we have more people, there's going to be more demand for that commercial property, and the demand is going to drive quality as well. We have incentive programs included. We want to focus on minority and women-owned business support. When we visited communities in the past where they have seen success, the Greenville, South Carolinas, and other places like that, one story that I remember hearing is that certain aspects of the community sometimes don't get to participate in that economic opportunity. Well, we don't want to repeat the same errors. I'm not saying that that's what happened in other places, but it's a concern, and it should be a concern of ours. So our Economic Development Department will be focusing and has been focusing on making sure that we support minority and women-owned businesses so that everyone, no matter who you are in this community, has an opportunity to participate in our success. With regard to tourism development, in about a year and a half or so, hopefully, maybe sooner, we'll have the start of 2 million visitors per day coming to our community to visit a casino resort. While they're here, they might spend 1 or 2 days, maybe longer, hopefully longer, but we want them to see what else is happening. We have a lot to celebrate in Danville. We have a lot of tourism assets as it is. We have great historic homes that people like to visit. So council last year decided to start a tourism program, and we want to continue that effort with an enhanced tourism program so that we're doing what's necessary to make sure that people who visit our community in about 18 months know that there's more to see in Danville. So that means building new tourism assets and promoting our existing assets. And so we have enhanced promotion and enhanced welcome center as part of the budget recommendation. Next headline is public safety effort produces results. If you look at the past 3 years and compare it to the 3 years prior to when council and the city were focused on community engagement through policing and the prevention and intervention efforts through the gang prevention program, you compare those 3 years to the previous 3 years before the effort, we have had a 50% drop in violent crime in our community. So that is an amazing achievement, especially when you look around the country and you see that crime rates are rising. Well, crime rates are falling in Danville, and they'll continue to fall in Danville because we're focused on suppression, intervention, and prevention. And I've said it all along since the beginning, and council members have mentioned it as well. When we decided to put a focus on reducing violent crime, prevention and intervention were the best ways to go. And that's what the police department's doing, and that's what our other efforts are doing, because the best crime is one that never happened. There's no victim, and there's no person that has a criminal record at the end of the day. So that's really what we're trying to focus on. This is not officially announced, but we expect in April that the police department will have CALIA accreditation on top of the other accreditations they have. That's a grueling process, and very few police departments in the Commonwealth have both that accreditation and the other accreditations, and we're very proud of the efforts of our police department. And as you all know, the Project Imagine has received multiple accolades over the years since it began, and their efforts continue. He's often asked to be a speaker at national events to talk about what we're doing in Danville and how it's making a difference. I suggested that my organization, the International City County Managers Association, have a session where our police chief and our gang prevention coordinator could hold a session on how to implement a comprehensive crime reduction model, and the ICMA has agreed that they want us to present at that upcoming conference, which it's not easy to get permission to do that, so I'm proud of them for that as well. To continue the effort in reducing crime and making us a safe community, we want to continue on our community engagement. We have new equipment for the new police headquarters. It's a little bit, it's about $170,000 we're using, I think, American Rescue Plan Act funds to pay for this. This is just a handful of items that weren't contemplated in the police renovation process. When compared to the total cost of the project, it's a small amount, 1% or less than that of the total cost. We have additional closed-circuit television cameras included in the budget, new police personnel equipment, or replacement equipment. This year, every year we replace one of the fire trucks, either a fire engine or a ladder truck. This year it's a fire engine that's going to be replaced. And then also we have included a backup 911 dispatch center, which will be located at the new police headquarters, which will provide us with better reliability. I mean, we want to have 100%, 110% reliability when it comes to our 911 center. So we'll have, they'll both be backed up by generators, so if there's a power outage, there's no problem, but they are going to be in separate parts of the electrical system, so that gives it even more reliability. This last slide, I would like to talk about other investments that we're making to make Danville home. In infrastructure, we've got funds included for airport south ramp rehabilitation. This will support aircraft usage at the airport, heavily funded by state and federal funds, so these projects have got a lot of grant funding behind them. A site prep for a corporate hangar. It's not to build a corporate hangar, it's just for site prep, and that again is also paid for mostly with grant funds. We'll continue streetscape improvements, and as the police department vacates City Hall, we'll have space here where we can bring in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, for example, on the first floor. We need to do some renovation associated with that and some reshuffling of other departments within City Hall. We have a beautiful City Hall. It's a historic building. This floor looks beautiful. The second floor looks beautiful. The first floor looks beautiful, but the third floor never got renovated, so we want to make sure that we get all parts of our historic City Hall looking like the rest of it. and make sure that we have the space that is necessary for our employees. The story of Danville for many years has been that we've been trying to get by as best as we can because, we were, unfortunately, we had challenges and we were dealing with them. Now that we have the resources to actually do things, I think it's important that we have good office space for our employees who are working so hard on behalf of our citizens to deliver services, and that they have the adequate space they need to do their work. In addition, quality housing, that's a focus. That's been a focus of City Council since I started with the city as Deputy City Manager. We want to continue that effort. Housing is extremely important when it comes to economic development. If we're attracting thousands of people to our community, we want them to choose to live in Danville. That means we need to eliminate blight. We need to invest in our neighborhoods. We need to make our homes more attractive to people who are looking at living in our community, so that when a middle-class family wants to choose a place to live because there's a job here in our region, they choose Danville. Then health, with regard to health and quality of life amenities, this is mostly about parks and recreation. We've got some upgrades to Coates Recreation Center. That'll add a place where people can work on computers and check out books. It's kind of a replacement for the Westover Branch Library. That's included in this year's budget. So the community in the Westover area can use that, and since it's closer to town, it actually will serve more people as well. We have neighborhood park upgrades included in the budget. The covered bridge, which is currently being remediated from its environmental issues, using funds from the IDA and grant funds from the state. There's funding in the budget to do a design to include that into the Riverwalk Trail, which is so popular for our citizens. If we can add one more crossing, when we do the design, we can then go out to get grant funding from VDOT and from trail programs at the state level to help implement that design. And then, of course, we want to continue to maintain and expand our Riverwalk Trail. It's an extremely, it's a great amenity for our community. People love it. If you go out there on a nice day, it's pretty crowded, and we want to make sure we have that great amenity still out there and expanding, so that we can continue to be attractive to people wanting to call Danville home.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the attorney up, and then we'll ask council to have any questions. What I've done, those of you who view and those of you who hear, I've had tireless meetings with the city manager and the attorney, and one of the things that come to council members all the time, if you go back and recollect what the city manager was saying several times in his presentation, totally transparent. This is the first time I can recall that we're doing what we're doing, but I also asked the city attorney to explain more of council's responsibilities in regard to school fundings. It's all yours, sir.
So I think you all know that there is a formula that is set, and that every locality, and it's different for every locality, has a minimal amount of money that they must provide the school board. This council has always gone well above board on that amount. You all have always provided much more than the state minimum. And not everybody does that. A lot of jurisdictions provide just the state minimum. One of the things we've been talking about is creative ways and the ways that the Virginia Code allows you all to do your funding. And there's essentially two ways. First of all, at the very beginning, you totally got to give the minimum, at least the minimum amount. And y'all will eventually decide in your budget or the city manager's budget, which will eventually become your budget, how much that's going to be. And traditionally, what you all have done is just given a lump sum. Basically, it's like write a check and give it to them, and that's how you've done it. But there is another way that you all can do it as well. There are 9 categories that the Virginia Code calls for that have to be funded in a school board budget. And so rather than just a lump sum, what you can do is put money in each one of those 9 categories. And what that does is it assures that each one of those categories is fully funded. Now, what limiting factor is, the limiting factor there is that the school board has to live within the means of each fund. So rather than one big fund, it's like 9 separate funds. And again, they can't cross match funds, but once they have those funds, that's a way, again, for everybody to make sure that all of the funds and all those 9 categories are funded. Some of those things include pupil transportation. Some of those things include administration. Some of those things include facility improvements, roofs. And in fact, you all kind of have done that in the past in one category, debt service. So debt service is one of those 9 categories, and I won't bore you by running through all the 9 categories. But this is just as we have been brainstorming and talking, this is just a different way, and it's something that you may want to look at as you go through your budget process in order to, again, make sure that each category is fully funded in that total amount so that all the appropriate amounts are placed in the school board's discretion, so that they have the tools, you know that you've provided them the tools and the funds and to help, because the idea is to help education, because education is your number one goal. Educating children is your number one goal, and it should be, because some people say they're the future. That's not right. They're the present. And so we got to take care of them in the present, so when they're sitting in your seats, we have a fully funded and a fully educated populace.
Thank you so much, John. Great job. Now I'm going to yield to council. Council, any questions, any comments for Ken and Clark? I will tell you, council, you may not know this, but we have been working day and night, and there's some more exciting things that we will be presenting to you all as a council. My suggestion would be, council, 2 things happened last year for you to consider. And one thing that happened last year was you were able to meet one-on-one or 2 with the city manager, as we did this week. You may want to consider continuing doing that, and you may want to consider a work session. Also, with Dr. Harrison, I personally found that those meetings with Dr. Harrison with 2-on-2 went very well. So it's something for you to consider. I yield to you to ask you what's your consideration and going forward now that this budget has been preliminary presented. Council, what's your pleasure? I like it. Sounds good. Is that consensus? Is that consensus? Sounds good. We got a consensus. Again, Ken and Clark, thank you so much for your presentation tonight.
And I think everybody should know, sometimes Ken and I start getting texts and emails at 4 in the morning, so the mayor is working like, I don't know if he sleeps.
Well, the thing that you all have done and the staff has done, and is very dear to this council's heart, and the city manager put it in there, and that's why this is the theme, investing into the success of our youth. And you've heard us say it 1,000 times. And so much clarity went into the things tonight. This is something we've never done before. But we wanted to bring complete clarity, and as the city manager said, total transparency. And not saying it has not been, but this is the way it's going to be. And therefore, I just want to thank you all again. Sure, speak into your microphone, please.
So, actually, that's the first time I've really heard of that, Clark. And are you talking about this is the 1% tax money, and it can go into several boxes?
No, sir.
Okay.
That 1% is going directly into school improvement. What I'm talking about is you all are required, and I left my glasses over here.
Yeah, we give them about 25 million.
You all are required to give money every year in the school budget. And y'all do an appropriation to the budget above and beyond. Doesn't talk about that. So what I'm talking about is there's 2 ways to do that. Traditionally, you all have done 2 categories. The one category has just been debt service, and the other category has been everything else. What I'm telling you is under the Virginia Code, and again, we've talked, and we're just brainstorming here.
Exactly.
We're just spitballing, as they call it.
It's interesting.
But there are 9 categories the money has to be spent in, and I'm just saying what y'all can do is you can fund each category individually, as opposed to just doing the 2 categories of the one, or just doing one appropriation. It may be something you want to consider. I wanted to bring it to you so you knew that was an option. But again, it's just spitballing, as they call it, just sort of brainstorming.
I just wanted to be clear on it, and again, with the 2-on-2, it gives the new superintendent a chance and us to see the budget and read it and understand it, and then we can speak clearly on it.
Yes, Councilman Whittle, I would say this. I had an opportunity, and I'm glad you said what you said. I had an opportunity to look at what our superintendent presented to us tonight. I think each councilman will find that what I saw was she broke down every school. And what she did was told us how many employees at the school, including cafeteria workers, janitors. That's something I've never seen before. And so, Lee, I'm gonna yield to you. Were you through, Madison? Lee, I'll yield to you.
Well, first, thank you, Mayor, and to that point too. Yes, thank you for this. I mean, this is incredible. I remember the days when I first got on council. I don't even think we got more than a page. So this is, very detailed and very much appreciated. I don't know if you were looking for guidance on this part of it tonight, but personally, I like the 9 categories route, and so if it comes to, I would be supporting us going to that model. I think that would be a better way to do it, and rather than one giant lump sum allocating the funds to the specific categories. I like that idea, and I'm glad that it was presented. I appreciate whoever helped make that come in front of us tonight, but I think that would be a good option. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilman Vogler. What is happening is the city manager is Clark. We've been spitballing at 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And I don't want to beat this too much, but the theme to the public, and you've heard a few minutes ago that I presented a proclamation to a young man who began racing. I don't know if you all listened to me very carefully, but that young man started early. And there's a whole lot more of young people we have out there and invested in the success of our youth. And I appreciate council and I appreciate staff for doing it. Anyone else? Dr. Miller?
Yeah, I'm not got my hands around this proposal yet. I'm not sure all what the 9 categories are, and I'd have to know more about what they are. Capital improvements, I assume, and other things like this. And I have to get feedback from the superintendent as to how they could make this work before I could support it, or, yay or nay. But I think we need more input.
Well, let me just say this, Dr. Miller. As Clark stated, we're just spitballing.
Right.
And this is preliminary. We don't have to have a discussion about it tonight. Clark have plans to give you all copies of everything that's discussed. And I guess I'm speaking for you, and you're standing right there.
That's what I was going to say. That sheet I handed out to you, it shows the 9 categories. They're highlighted. There's two paragraphs there. The first paragraph says you got to fund to the minimum amount, and then the second paragraph gives you each one of those 9 categories. So I wanted you all to see that, and then I have just a few extra notes on the back.
We just received this tonight, though.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's no
I'll pass
decision.
that out tonight.
I haven't had time to read it yet.
Let me say this, Clark. Also, in the on the 2-on-2 meetings that Councilman Whittle discussed, I would really encourage you, council, to set up a meeting with Clark, because there's a few more things we were spitballing out that we're not going to talk about tonight. So there's some things that Clark and Ken and I have been spitballing, and I want you all to hear those things, and I want your insight on those things. But we don't need to discuss that tonight.
So when Clark's done, are we going to have some rebuttal on the budget, Mayor? Or?
Definitely, most
Okay.
definitely. Yes, sir. Anyone else? Thank you, Clark. Councilman Saunders.
Just to say, Mr. Mayor and members of council and administration, with growth comes challenges. We don't live in the past, but we do review the past to improve the future. And we still have some challenges. Communication, in my view, is imperative. We still have more work to do. I'm glad that we are making progress. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Councilman Campbell.
Yes, I appreciate the budget and preliminary things. I want to say something, not per se that has to be in this budget, no. I remember what the Regional Foundation sponsored council and some of the leaders in our workforce to go to Kentucky and Tennessee to study the riverbank. What I want to present is the idea of a port authority. This will supply landowners with services of marketing and economic development, also bring more economic activities on the riverbank. It will be to increase public safety. Also, it will help to develop an economic development and capital improvement for the riverbank. I remember when we was in Kentucky, when they had a building which can consist of already what is in place the White Mill or the Park Recreation or whatever, but it was an acceleration of growth on the riverbank. And since we know that we're getting so much interest in Danville, and for you to say tonight that economic priorities, and since 2018, we had $1 billion worth of investment within our community, that is strong. But I would love for us to research that and maybe make a presentation, but in some way we need to try to maximize, and we know the river is important for the city of Danville and projection for the future. And if we can accelerate that and maximize the interest of industry coming to our area, then I think it's a great thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you also, Councilman Campbell. That also goes into the theme of investing in the success of our youth. So thank you so much. Anyone else? Madam Clerk, if you will, Communications City Manager.
I have nothing. I think a councilman actually wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. So go ahead.
It was a good meeting today on the budget, and I appreciate all the work that goes into it. Actually, one of the highlights was, and I think it's already been spoken on, was the when our rates are set, we've got about 24 hours notice, plus or minus, to get it out to the folks that if you'll turn your power back 2 degrees, that our peak goes down. We pay on the peak. We've put solar on top of it. We've got battery pack systems on top of that we've invested in. We've got new transformers that we've purchased the taxpayers purchased to make this utilities department run as efficiently as possible. That message, it makes a difference if you do not use that energy the best you can during that time. With the airport, I had just asked, and it was, a few years ago, if there was a possibility of putting, this is put in the budget, and they said, well, it was a couple $1 million if we could bring in a year to bring in a small commercial American liner. And I'd at least like to have us think in that direction, because I think in the next few years it's going to be imperative that we've got something for that. And again, we get federal tax dollars for that. It was shortened at a time. It's been. We'll have bigger planes coming in. We have, of course, Virginia International Raceway brings in as big planes as they can. I'm sure that the casino will bring in big planes as they can, and I just would at least like that considered for a small regional jet from American Airlines 2 times a day. Now, it might be $20 million now, but it's something that I'd like to at least know what we can do. And that, I don't think that'll get plugged into this budget, but it's what I'd be interested in. And when so the $1.5 million for the police department that we just approved today, is that part of, there was another $1.5 million in the budget that's separate?
There is in the
it's $1.7 million, and then there's $1.5 million.
Yeah, the public safety information system that we use, which covers police, fire, dispatch, all the operations of the record keeping, all that stuff. The system we currently have in place is out of date. They're not supporting it anymore, and we are in need of implementing a new total system replacement, and it will take a couple of years to get it done. And the budget amendment that was approved earlier this evening will help us to jumpstart that process so we can go ahead and get that going, and we will need funding in future years to complete it.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, we had great surveillance systems that that it got so expensive to have somebody, you pay for the service to run these things, that they came obsolete pretty quick. And I'm sure we're ahead of the game on that.
Are you talking about the CCTV program that we have through the police department? Every year for the past few years, we've included additional dollars to expand our CCTV programs, and it's actually been extremely helpful to us to solve crimes. I can point to a few examples. I don't want to get too specific about it, but I know of multiple examples where we've used information we've gotten from that system to help solve crimes quickly. And everyone knows on council when we've had thankfully there are fewer and fewer now, but when we've had an issue with a violent crime, it's very quickly that the police clears that, because they've been able to use great police work, of course, was where it starts, but also the tools necessary to do great police work and be able to solve those crimes and then get it to the court system for what they need to do.
So with the school system and what we budget at around $22 to $25 million, is that a baseline anymore, or is that, do we have a baseline where we're going to start? And then, of course, they need a couple more $1 million for a continuing maintenance on all their buildings that might not be part of the $150 million that we're going to work in through the 1% sales tax.
The budget is flat. The request for operations is about $22 million. $2 million on top of that for capital, which is also flat from the current year. There is debt service that we have to pay, but thankfully that debt service actually has gone down. As we pay off debt, the debt service comes down. So really what we're spending on education what we will be spending next year on education, if approved, will be a little less than what we have in our current year. The 1% local option sales tax, because of the way interest rates are working right now, they're actually rising a little bit. Unfortunately, what we had hoped would be closer to $140 million is now looking like $129 million based on what our estimates are for sales tax collection and the interest rates. So when we go out to borrow the funds, we think it'll be more like $129.
In our neighborhood parks, because I don't necessarily think that when I was a kid and lived in Grove Park, I wasn't going to truck down here to the river except for, well, let's say, but that's why I wasn't going to come down the river. I was going to go to my park. Mayor Saunders has a park at the end of his road. We're re-implementing that on top of the park downtown.
Yes, we've heard loud and clear that council members of the community cares about their neighborhood parks. We're focusing on having better neighborhoods to make them more attractive for our community. So that means investing in our neighborhood parks to make sure they have the best equipment, so that when kids want to play, they can just walk down the street, go to the park, play, and enjoy the amenity that they have within walking distance.
Okay, so if I was clear today in the meeting with
Councilman Mayo.
Councilman Mayo, he was a terror, by the way. With Councilman Mayo, I call it Optimus League football, baseball, and basketball that I played as a young adult. That's going to be not just specifically basketball. It's going to be the three sports.
Absolutely,
and tied in with the in our education program.
Yes, a robust athletics program in partnership with Danville Public Schools, and of course with an enhanced athletics division in our Parks and Recreation Department. We'll be trying to promote all sports. And of course, it does take kids wanting to play and parents allowing their kids to play. That's a key part of it, but we need to promote it, recruit for it, encourage our young people to participate in it, and provide them the opportunity to do so and the facilities and equipment necessary. So, exactly what that looks like, I'm not sure yet. We're in the midst of hiring a new athletics director. Hopefully that'll happen here soon. If the positions are approved in the budget, then they'll have a staff to support them. in implementing the program, but we've heard very loud and clear from all council members that support for our youth, support for youth athletics is important. Dr. Hairston has often talked to me about how important athletics is to the success of a young person because it gives them something to do after school in a productive way. Often to be in athletics in schools, you have to perform academically to even qualify to be on a sports team. So all of that works together to increase opportunities for our young people to be successful.
So I guess if I was going to go out to play, I'd have to watch YouTube to know how to do it at this point, maybe. So anyway, good.
We have programs for adults too. We do have programs for adults too.
Okay. Well,
So
I don't want one. Thank you.
Come play softball with us this year, Madison.
And the other thing was on the minimum wage adjustment is where I was struggling today, and that it was fine. I mean, it is what it is. I want council to be aware too, and I'm sure that they are. But when this thing is adjusted, that it runs across the gamut, so it's about $20 million.
Not 20 million. My understanding is that and we don't know if that the state is going to go to $15 minimum. That's still to be decided. If it does, and if we were to implement the $15 per hour minimum throughout the city organization, and we would do it in the year that it's required, by the time that happens, which if it does happen, it would be a few years from now, the total estimated cost from, if you compare what we pay for personnel now to what we would be paying at that point and flowing compression through our organization is probably around $10 or $11 million.
Can you explain the compression?
So compression, and I know city council members are well aware of this, but the public probably would like to know what is compression. So if you were to raise the minimum wage of your employees from where they are now up to the new minimum wage, you have people that are currently getting paid that same amount, but they're doing more responsible work, or the market actually is supposed to pay them more. So as you increase the minimum for one group of employees, you really have to increase
For example, if you have a supervisor that's making $15 an hour now,
yes, sir,
and you move the workers that's working for the supervisor to $15 an hour, that supervisor's pay has got to be adjusted.
Yes.
Anything else, Councilman Whittle? Anything else?
That's all I got tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? On the communications, city manager.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy city manager. Thank you, sir. City attorney?
Very, very quickly, one of the things council has been interested in is something called outdoor refreshment area. And what that allows you to do is to, if you say you order a beer at one of the ABC retailers we have in the River District, normally it's going to be a restaurant, you would be allowed within the River District in public to be able to continue to take that beer with you. So say you haven't finished or you get a refill, you'd be able to take that with you. And there's some very specific guidelines. You can only buy them from somebody who's an ABC retailer. You can only take them on property that private property owners would allow. And within the River District, of course, we know we have City Hall and we have school property. Well, we're not going to allow that to occur on city property. We're not going to allow that to occur on any of the school board property, but it's something that a lot of communities are getting interested in, and it will be, I think, an enhancement to our River District, because without, you might want to go here and pick up a burger and you have a beer and you didn't finish that, so you're going to walk over here to get dessert, but or you just want to go down and enjoy the plaza. So this is something that a lot of communities are currently doing. Not a lot of them have adopted it. A lot of folks are working on it, but I just wanted to let you know it is something that we can have prepared and ready to go at the next council meeting if that's something council wants to do. There will be a map that will show you everywhere you can go. Again, this is something that I think that most folks will consider an enhancement to the area, and so we'll answer any questions.
Let me just say this. I'm so tickled up here, and I'm trying to keep my composure, because after the budget meeting, we talked about going to drink some alcohol, and I think it's
First round's on you, right, man?
Not in here.
You know, I've never drank in my life, but the way you presented that, Dr. Miller, go ahead before I.
Okay, a couple of questions. I think this is a great idea. It wouldn't be like New Orleans where you had to keep it in a bag, would it?
No, sir.
Okay, and secondly.
What is required, though, is, so if I buy it from Gary Miller's restaurant, Gary Miller's has to have a plastic or a paper cup that identifies where it came from, so that they could tell that that came from somebody that had their ABC.
And secondly, you know, some restaurants don't want you to bring, they won't let you to bring outside food or beverages into their restaurant. So you buy it from my restaurant, would I be able to go into your restaurant to pick up the burger?
That would be up to each individual property owner. So if the property owner, the business owner says, nope, you can't bring that in, you can't bring it in, but some of them might reciprocate with each other and say, well, yeah, you can, if you're going to get a burger here. But what it mainly allows is for you to be out on the sidewalks and enjoy the plaza and other amenities we have. Eventually, you know, the downtown park probably will be part of it. So it's just a different, it's something that we have never been allowed before in Virginia, and it's something that's opened up in Virginia.
Dr. Miller, anything else?
Great idea.
Councilman Vogler, sounds like we're ready to put it on, so don't mess it up.
I'm excited about it. Just a quick backstory, and Clark, you did a great job on this, but I've been following this for several years because I really wanted Danville to be able to do it. And as you mentioned, we couldn't because the state never allowed for it. And so not this session that they just got out of, but it was actually over a year ago at the session in 2021. There was legislation that was working its way through, and I had reached out to Doug and y'all even then and said, if this thing passes, let's get on top of it. And to their credit, they have been. They've been working on it for a year. And so this isn't something that was haphazardly thrown together. I mean, it's been very well thought out and well prepared. And just as word of it has gotten through the community, folks are already really excited about it. And will only, as you said, enhance what we've been doing in the River District. We're allowed to have 3 of these in a locality. That's what the state law says, that you can have 3 of these outdoor refreshment zones. Many of us thought the River District was the logical first one, and so that's why Clark is bringing that one to us. But again, I think, you know, as we have more tourists coming into the city, certainly in the next few years, you know, this is only going to grow our ability to attract people, and for those already living here to have a great Friday or Saturday evening out. Greensboro just did this, what they're calling it a social district, but very similar. They just did it. So let's do it better. And so I'm ready to vote on it at the next meeting if there's no objection.
Yeah, Council, it's going to be.
On this, can I piggyback on that?
Sure, go
You
ahead.
said 3 zones, so if, just for instance, if the Carrington's all fenced in, that doesn't count as a zone?
No, sir.
It'd be just
Yeah,
butt up to it.
because they will have they can have vendors like at an event that they would have, that would be separate from all of this, because they have vendors that get their own ABC license to sell during events there. It's two things to note. In addition to just within this zone, you can have 16 events a year. And the other thing is, we'll need somebody to get the ABC license, and I'm going to talk to a nonprofit organization next week and convince them to help us with the ABC license.
Councilman Whittle, you good? Councilman Vogler, you good?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Saunders.
Mr. Whitfield, very quickly, you mentioned River District.
Yes, sir.
We're looking at having a park, you know, here downtown,
Yes, sir.
and you're going to have some kids in there.
That's,
Is that going to be an issue with regards to bringing in beer where you have a lot of children?
that'll be something y'all have to decide. If that's something, if you want to take the park out of it, that's something you can do. Typically, though, people should be drinking responsibly, and there will be people monitoring at all times.
Thank you, Clark. So this is what when you bring this back to us, send council what you're planning on bringing back to us, to Councilman Saunders' point. Thank you.
I will. And if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to call me, and I will go through all of it again.
I also need you to meet with all council members about some of the spitballing stuff that we were talking about.
And I'll let them make those appointments.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
City Clerk, anything? Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayo?
Yes. Great meeting. City manager, good showing of what the proposed budget looks. Peyton, congratulations to you as well as to Ralph Ryan and his wife in reference to doing a lot for our community. Listening to all what we heard tonight and are doing, I'm very happy and proud of our council, how we're sticking together to our plans, to working as a cohesive, I'll call team. And that's the whole focal point in getting things done, is working together. So good meeting. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Yeah, this week, Monday, several of us got to watch the wrecking ball hit the finishing building out at Schoolfield, and finally, people are coming up to me and say, "Hey, we're energized now. It looks like progress is being made." They've been working on it for some time. You just couldn't see visible progress, but now the casino resort is going. Secondly, over the couple of years, I've presented some pretty bleak assessments of our COVID status. I do have to report things are looking up. Numbers are down, but we're not out of this yet. Last week, I saw 7 people with COVID, either had active COVID or long COVID. In other words, you get the COVID and it don't go away. You still got brain fog, you still got chest pain, you can't breathe, you can't taste and smell. So it's still here. And one thing you can do to help get over the long COVID is get that vaccine. Even if you've had COVID, the vaccine will help you. Last week, unfortunately, we did a patient having a heart attack, and he had COVID, and we didn't know it till we got through. So everybody goes, gulp, But we take precautions. We presume people have COVID when they come in that room, even if we don't know. You come in the emergency room, you don't know. So you got to take precautions. So what I'm saying is, don't let your guard down. As the ex-president of the United States noticed, you can still get COVID. Barack Obama had COVID this week. In China, they're locking down major cities with millions of people because the COVID is bouncing back. So take precautions. Get your vaccine. Don't relax yet. And then the rest I'll talk about is everybody's been watching the news in Ukraine. So we were watching the other night, and those apartment buildings that they're showering with missiles that have the little balconies. Less than 10 years ago, my wife took a tour of Russia and Ukraine with her sister. And my wife said, I sat on one of those balconies. The Russian family hosted us on the tour for breakfast. She sat out on one of those balconies with a school teacher who spoke good English, of course, and who was working a second job. But she said, these people are just like me. My wife was a school teacher. And they had a great conversation. And now she has to wonder, what has happened to that woman? Is she alive? Is she a refugee? What's happened? So our hearts have to be with what's going on there. And then last night, I saw a young couple in Kyiv, a man and his wife. They had stayed to fight. They were in army fatigues, had rifles. They didn't list his occupation, but she was a city councilwoman. She had stayed to fight for her freedom in the city against overwhelming odds, knowing that both of them could be killed. And if they capture her, they will execute her. They'll just execute her. The Russians do that because she's a public official. So it just gives new meaning to the phrase fighting for your freedom and fighting for your city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to sports, Mr. Manager, we're talking about many activities, and I see Bill Springer was here a few minutes ago. Just want you to know that you do have a resource, a certified coach in all sports, and Mr. Mayo. So he volunteered in his services. I'm sure very proud of you, sir. Very proud of you. Also, Mr. Sellers, you and your family, congratulations. Very proud of you. I attended a NASCAR event in the White House not very long ago, and your name was mentioned, and that makes us real proud in this community. And my last question for you, Mr. Sellers, can you help me make my 1967 Chevelle more competitive in a race with you?
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Vogler.
Yes, Councilman Saunders, I'm glad you brought up sports. I don't know if you've had a chance to check it in the last day or so, but my Miami Dolphins poached a few players from your Cowboys, so I appreciate that. Hopefully they'll be the better ones, I hope. Ken, again, thank you for the presentation on the budget tonight. I know that you met with council members two at a time prior to tonight, and I already asked you a ton of questions when we were having those meetings, so I wasn't going to put you through all that again tonight for the televised meeting. But I did just want to say again, I'm very glad to see that a library will be returning to the Westover community at Coates with the improvements that are happening there with computer use and books. I know that's been a concern for members over in that community that have reached out to me and wanting to keep that presence there. And quite frankly, I think may end up being better now than it was before. So that's exciting, and glad to see that that's a part of this budget. The last thing I want to talk about real quickly, and Dr. Miller mentioned that a group of us was there yesterday morning, 7:30 in the morning. I think it was about 25 degrees at that point when we were there. It doesn't feel like that today, but yesterday morning it was cold. To be there for the beginning of the demolition of the finishing building at the historic Dan River Mills. And actually, there's a great photo you can see on Facebook of the group of us there. It is actually, I guess, will be a historic photo because it's the last photo that was taken of that building before the demolition began. But to me, that photo and all that, it's symbolic of the great turnaround that's happening in this comeback city. This council certainly has been involved in this Caesars process and the revitalization that's going to be happening at Schoolfield, certainly, but I also did, and I know Councilman Hood did this online earlier, but I also want to point out and thank former council member Shanks, who was involved in the process to get us there, as well as former councilman Adam Tomer. They were in the room when we were going through that whole process to get there. So what's happening now is not a culmination, but the next step in this process. And I want to give credit to those who were here along the way, and actually even going further back than that. If you go back to when the Schoolfield property was purchased, and some different council members were there then, Councilman Gilstrap and Councilman Raleigh at the time when we had to make the vote. Some of us were there at that time to essentially save that Schoolfield property, and it was not a universally popular decision at the time, but a decision that has now clearly paid off. And we would possibly and likely not have a Caesars Casino here today had that decision not been made several years ago. So again, I want to give credit to those who've helped pave the way along the way, and close by saying that in the year 2000, the city of Danville, we were coming out of a time period where Dan River Mills had left. On top of that was a national recession that was crushing everyone. In 2010, Danville was essentially rock bottom. We were about as in bad a shape as you could possibly be because of so many exterior factors that were hitting us. And we spent the next decade laying the foundation of a new Danville. And I believe in this decade, you're going to see the house built on that foundation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Whittle?
So every once in a while, we go race 24-hour races out at VIR. And you get all kinds of folks out there doing it. You change drivers every couple of hours. And I guess maybe my car was a little underpowered at the time, but this truck comes past me at about 160 miles an hour, 50, whatever. And it's the one that raked down beside of me, but I thought it was Peyton, so I didn't feel so bad. But it was Bert, his daddy. That's right. I found out later. And he owes me a side of that BMW that we were putting down in. I didn't know he probably didn't like that BMW anyway, but he was driving a Chevrolet truck. That's right. Came right past me, and I know Peyton and Bert, all the race and everything they do, that they're all extremely competitive, and I appreciate everything that council did tonight, giving them the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Buckner?
Yeah, I echo what everybody said. Congratulations, Peyton and the Sellers family. You guys are a staple here in our community, and we really appreciate everything you guys do for us as a community. I look forward to many, many more years of success for you guys. There's a lot of fun things, exciting things happening in Danville right now. There's ribbon cuttings, it seems like twice a week now, which is a great thing. Wanted to recap Saturday's ribbon cutting for a few businesses. There's Edible Arrangements, Pie 5, and Witch Witch. And it was just a great time for all of us to get together. And we love these things, you know. Anytime we get an opportunity to come together as a council to celebrate new businesses opening, it's a good thing for everybody. You know, we all feel that jobs are getting done, jobs are being created. And it's just a real good feeling. Mayor, I wanted to also thank you because you were in the middle of a conversation and I actually called you on your cell phone. I think you were a couple storefronts down to come and meet a couple of young people who were very excited to meet our mayor. And that's something that they will always remember. You know what I mean? And I appreciate you taking the time to do that. It was a real special thing for them. Also, speaking of ribbon cuttings, we've got one Friday night. Friday evening, I think it's at 5 p.m. at Culture Restaurant at 510 Spring Street. I hope everybody can come out and attend it. Hope you'll grab dinner right afterwards. I expect most of us will probably have dinner down there that night. So it'd be great to see the community come out and support it. Take a look at this amazing property. It's been rehabbed and it is absolutely fabulous. I can't wait for everybody to see it, just to see another little piece of that investment that we talk about so much in our city and what our initial investment has come to be. So it's a real exciting time to be here in the city of Danville. And I look forward to many, many years to come. And as Councilman Vogler said, I look forward to the house that's going to be built in the next 10 years. Thank you, Mayor.
But don't forget, tomorrow we're back together again at John M. Langston at 2 p.m.
I'm sorry, yes. Langston School tomorrow at 2 p.m.
We're going to have some fun over there.
We certainly will, absolutely.
And then on Thursday, we're with Peyton again at 12 noon on 58.
I'm skipping all kind of stuff. I need a calendar.
And then Friday, we're back at Culture. So
that's it. So please, 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 Mark Aaron does a wonderful job getting you guys the footage from that. But we love it when there's a crowd there. So if you can't make it, we understand. But if you can possibly make it to any of these events, it means so much to come out and support your community, support what's going on in our city. And it helps with the growth, you know, unity and showing folks that we are, in fact, a city that cares about one another.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Reverend Campbell?
Yes, very shortly. Hearing all of the comments tonight shows us that Dan was really on the move. And I just want to thank some of the players that make it happen. To our city manager, we really honor you. And most of all, yes. We got a great city manager and deputy city manager, and what I can say about Ken, that he tries his best to be transparent. And the relationship that we have between management and council is second to none. Hadn't seen nothing like it. And to our great mayor and to council, I just appreciate all of you all as much as possible. In reference to Lee, you was talking about the school field. We left out one person, that's Linwood. Yeah, Linwood had a major player in making that happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Hood?
Yeah, I just want to touch on, as we're approaching a new season, to show that Danville can continue to show collaborations through our community. So community collaborations by springing forward, since we're going into the spring season. A couple of things I want to acknowledge. I want to acknowledge again and congratulations to Mr. Sellers, the House of Fashion, Gazelle & Co. We have Solar to See here.
Hold on, you're going too fast. Let's ask these people to stand up, sir. You're giving accolades. Ask them to stand up.
Right, please stand if you
You call them back again. Call their names again.
We got House of Fashion.
House of Fashion, please stand.
Gazelle & Company.
What's the name? Kelly Cunningham?
Kelly Cunningham.
Let's go to the next one.
Okay, we have Casey Cunningham with Gazelle & Co.
Please stand.
We have Justin Williams right here with Solar to See. And I just wanted to acknowledge some of those, and Mr. Payton again, you know, if you may stand, but I just wanted to acknowledge that, but first and foremost, well, last but not least, I really want us to take the time and just look at and say, to witness tonight what we witnessed from our city manager.
Yes.
And he mentioned the term unprecedented. Unprecedented to present the fiscal year at this council session and to make those proposals accessible for our citizens. That means way more than we could ever imagine because it shows buy-in throughout the community. And to be able to do that, to be totally transparent, it's something amazing to see. And just going over the proposed budget is like, wow, you really have, the whole staff and everybody that's involved with this really did their due diligence on something, again, that's unprecedented. So, and to all my colleagues, I appreciate you all, and Mayor, I'm thankful for you since before being here, but just to say those words right there and to thank everybody that's in the chambers for coming out and really being invested in our city. It just goes to show this season is springing forward.
Thank you. Over $286 million. Budget team, please stand up. Budget team, a city's budget team, please stand up. And is Henrietta here? Henrietta here? Henrietta, Ken, introduce the budget team, because you all have done a spectacular job.
Thank you, Mayor. I normally, after the budget, I take a moment to thank the budget team, and I appreciate you mentioning them. Yes, Henrietta is our budget director.
How long has Henrietta been here with us?
She's been with us for longer than she's been the budget director, but she was promoted a few months ago to be the budget director, well, maybe about a year ago. About a year ago, promoted to be budget director, but had been working in the finance department for a few years before that. Always been doing a great job for us, helping with RIFA, helping with all sorts of activities that Michael and Henry, of course, know way more than me about. But she's been with us a long time, directed this year's budget process for us. Of course, Michael Atkins, our finance officer, he's always there to help us work through what our revenue projections are going to be in conjunction with the team. Earl, the deputy city manager, part of the budget team as well. And then Amanda Paez, our assistant to the city manager. She is an integral part of our budget team. And not listed, not shown here is Sarah Weller. We can't leave her out. He's our HR director. As I said before, we're a people-driven organization. We need to make sure that we're doing what's right for our people, and our HR director helps us to work through all the various requests that we have for personnel. So I do want to thank all of our budget team for the work they put together over many months, often on the weekends, often at night, to get us to the point where we are now with this budget document presented to council. So thank you so much for reminding me that I needed to thank the team. And I appreciate what people said about me, but it's really about the team and what the work that they do to bring us to this point. And again, the department heads who work diligently on their individual departments and present us with what they need, no more, to do the job to serve the citizens of Danville.
Council, will you join me in giving a standing ovation to our team, please?
Absolutely.
I've heard persons say, I'll be brief. They weren't brief. I'm not going to say any of that. The only thing I'm going to say is, Ms. Roof, there's council, you all remember when Councilman Saunders says you never know who's watching. Ms. Roof, stand up. Stand up, Ms. Roof. This young lady right here, she watches council meetings all the time. And she called me, or had someone to call me. We didn't have council meeting last week. She said, where are y'all at on TV? I can't find y'all. And she surprised me was here. Ms. Ruth, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much. To everyone who is here tonight, Brian, thank you for identifying persons in our community to continue to help us move Danville forward. Council, you remember there were persons making video and said we wouldn't be here today. Y'all remember, but these persons have invested into our community. A young man went all the way overseas and came back home. Peyton, we're excited about what you and your family have added to our community and continue to do in our community, and to all of the organizations and groups that are doing what they're doing. Clark, I just want to say to you and Ken, I want to publicly apologize to you both, because Councilman Saunders, they have been through a lot with me in the last, how many days has it been? It's been about 7 days. We've been through a lot. And we have been through a lot, day and night, early in the mornings. We've talked to each other. Ken, what do you think, about 4 or 5 times in the morning, 3 times and after Clark we've talked? This is real, because this is very passionate to this council, and we are investing in the success of our youth is what council has been talking about, and they have actually done a superb job. Councilman Saunders, Ken and I disagreed a lot. Clark and I disagreed a lot, but we had fun doing it. We had fun doing it. We really had fun doing it. As Clark called it, spitballing. And they won some, I won some. And when you sit down and meet with them, you're going to find out we had a lot of fun doing it because we didn't get upset with one another, Earl. It was actually fun. So Ken has a way of saying no to me without saying no to me. And he don't realize that I know what he's trying to say to me, Madison. And then I said, well, I'm going to stand with my decision. So he'll call me, he'll get off the phone with me, and he'll call me back later. He said, let's talk about that, and we talk about it. So you have done a great job. Your presentation tonight, this is something we never done before, as long as I've been on council, Clark. And so I can't wait for the other council members to hear some of the spitballing we've done. We got a lot of ideas that can transition some of the conversations we've been having years for, as the city manager said, total transparency. We have plans in place for total transparency. I want to pause as I close by saying to Dr. Miller and Councilman Saunders, thank you so much for serving on the education piece to me. I hope you see tonight that some of what we are presenting comes from the labels of Councilman Saunders and Councilman Miller. Can you all join me and give them a hand, please? It has been tough. And there's going to be more things coming in regards to the education piece. And believe you me, you're going to be really, really excited to hear what's coming forward. And thank you, sirs. Thank you so much, because I know it's been a lot of hard work. Congratulations to Ann Moore Sparks, our new CEO of our chamber. She was with us this weekend. Buck, I don't think she want to hang out with us anymore after being with us this past weekend. But there's great things on the horizon for this. And thank you all who sat through this tonight. This is a budget process that you never, and luckily for you all haven't had the privilege of going through what council. We would be into a work session, how long, Lee?
Midnight.
We'd be in midnight work session. We would be here all night, but fortunately, I can hit this gavel and say, there's no more good for the city. We are now adjourned.